the conscious man.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast.
What is a conscious man?
So yeah, my wife messaged, she said, she was like, I found this podcast and I just applied for it. I was like, I know this guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious, dude. But nothing is a coincidence.
Never a coincidence.
Chase Faldmo,
Yes.
welcome to the podcast, bro.
Yeah.
It has been 15 years, right?
Yeah, I think so. I lose track of
14 years,
time.
maybe? No, it's been 14 years. It was 2010.
2010.
July of 2010. We were
Yeah.
in the Missionary Training Center in Provo together.
Learning Spanish
What
as rookies.
a trip that was.
It was good. It was great.
It
Good
was
laughs.
good and it sucked ass at the same time. Let's be honest. That was a prison for a while.
You felt a little locked in there for long, but
Yeah.
luckily we had good people like you. We could have good laughs. So
How long were you there?
I was there. I thought we were there at the same time.
You were there
6
for 12 weeks, right?
Or was it 12 weeks? I
Or was
lost
it
track
9?
of time.
I was there for like 3 or 4 weeks longer than I was supposed to be because I was still waiting on my visa to Spain.
Oh, you were there longer than us?
And I ended up going to Minnesota for 4 months because my visa was taking so long.
Oh my goodness. I didn't hear the
It was actually amazing. Like I loved it. I loved Minnesota. It was like a super cool experience because I got to do the stateside thing.
Yeah.
And then after that I went to Spain and it was just a whole different experience.
You're in Madrid?
Madrid.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Been there. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, dude, it was great. Like Madrid is like meh, kinda. Barcelona was way cooler.
Yeah.
But I got to go up to the northwest part of Spain, like right on the coast above Portugal. Oh my god, dude, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I was up there for like 6 months, and I just fell in love with that place up there. Super green. We were in a city that was like on a hillside,
Ooh.
right above the water, and
Stuff you see in the movies.
yeah, it was amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I went to Spain before. My brother was in Malaga.
Oh, cool.
And,
Okay.
it's amazing about Europe. No wonder they're so skinny there. They walk around everywhere, and their portions are like this big compared to our American portions.
Well, and their food isn't poison,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
right?
That's the big picture, too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, before we jump into your story,
Cool.
the podcast is called The Conscious Man.
Cool.
So I always ask my guests, what does it mean to you to be a conscious man
You asking me this right now?
right now?
Oh, I think about the world we're in right now. The conscious man, he uses his true masculine power, and he overcomes difficulties in society. I feel like society's under attack right now.
Yeah.
And as a conscious man, you do everything you can to defend good principles. You try to help those around you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a conscious man does.
Yeah, you said society's under attack, and it's like the first line of defense is men,
Yep,
a masculine man,
100%.
right? So they've really attacked our masculinity because we are that barrier between evil and a peaceful society, right? And so you take down masculine men and you feminize them and you poison them and you make them
100%.
passive and docile, then you can do whatever you want with the society and you have complete control, right? So it's
100%.
been very clearly, like from my point of view, it's like this has all been very purposeful. Like they know what they're doing because they want control.
Absolutely.
So cool, man. Well, yeah, tell me a little bit because it has been 15 years. Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing because you're a chiropractor now,
Yep.
a dad.
Yep. So yeah, after our missions, my mission, I ended up doing my undergrad, and then I ended up I looked at different professions, and I was led to chiropractic. So I went to chiropractic school.
Which you wanted to be a chiropractor when you were at the MTC.
Well, I wanted to be, at the time I wanted to be a medical doctor.
Oh, okay.
And then, so I looked into doing medical school for a bit,
Yeah.
but that just didn't feel right. Looked into dentistry for a bit. That didn't feel right either. I was led to chiropractic, but
Cool.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Being a football guy, basketball guy, I was like, I want to be able to use my hands. I don't want to sit at a desk all day.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the direction some of the doctors I had talked to said, medical school, the future of that's a little iffy. But looking back now, I'm glad I made that decision, especially what's going on in our society right now. So yeah, I was led to chiropractic. And then after chiropractic school, I went and a little bit on my story for your audience and guests. As you remember, and I was in high school. I had a hydrocele surgery. You know what a hydrocele is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Had my hydrocele surgery, and I got extremely sick. Went to all the best doctors across the country. On paper, none of it would help me, and I was dying.
Yeah.
So I was
Did he get infected? It was like, because I had a friend that had a hydrocele in high school, and all he just had to have surgery, and that was about it. So what was it that was so bad about it?
It's a routine surgery.
Yeah.
So I had my surgery, and normally you should be fine, but it was the painkillers and anti-inflammatories. They gave me burned large ulcers in my stomach.
Okay.
So to try to correct that, I was given more meds, and I lost 50 pounds, went to all the best doctors across the country, did every single test
possible. Give you all the
possible.
Band-Aids without actually getting to the core of the issue.
You got it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened. So I tried everything. It was near the end. We even called the Mayo Clinic, supposed to be the best of the best. They said, you've been to the doctors that trained us. They did the same test we would have done. Good luck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was at the end, and then I heard about a doctor who used frequency and physics and voltage. So I started using these principles. I went to him, started using them, noticed a difference within 2 weeks, and then after a year, I was completely better after being sick and almost dying for 2 years.
Wow.
So that same provider who saved my life, I went back and worked with him after school, and I've seen thousands of patients from all around the world with the craziest cases. But recently, I've made the leap, and I'm on my own now, and
Cool.
Doing the same thing, helping others.
I love that, man. Yeah, it's funny because I remember specifically when we were in the MTC, because I had stomach issues since the time I was like 15, and they put me on Prilosec when I was 15 years old. And you told me in the MTC, you're like, bro, you got to get off of that.
One of the things
This
that
is
made
what
me
you got.
sick.
This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. And I was like, bro, I can't. Like, my heartburn is too bad. Well, years after my mission, I finally found out, like, oh, Prilosec's like giving people cancer, and it's just there's all these lawsuits against it, and it's just obviously, you know, it's kind of like it was just like kind of an awakening for me of like, wow, I've just been like poisoning myself. But it was just what the doctor told me to do at 15, and never told me that this was a short-term fix. Like, never told me that. It was just like, yeah, just get on Prilosec. And so that whole process has just been like years of healing my gut too, of like getting my bile up and running, and you know, because it's slowed down my digestive system for so long and just created so many issues. And I think back to the MTZ all the time. Like, you knew, bro. You tried to tell me.
It's okay. It's at least you figured it out. Yeah, that was one of that affected me too. They had me on such high doses, and that's the problem I see with Prilosec is it completely depletes your stomach acid.
Right.
So when we eat our food, it sits and ferments in our system, and that's what makes people
And then it
super
creates
sick.
this colony of bad guys down in your gut that are like, hey, give me this,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
it's yeah.
So I'm glad you're doing better though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a long road, but yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like what modalities you're using, because I want to hear a little bit more about like frequency, because I've recently started to get into, like, I've always kind of known that, like, you know, everything is frequency.
Yes.
Like everything is frequency.
Yep.
Like everything is energy, and energy is frequency. And so
100%.
it makes sense that frequency is like that would get to the core of what the universe is made up of, right? And so it's funny because my wife just recently bought this little, like, I don't know what it's called. It's like a Strife or something. It's a little like heat gun that uses frequencies. And she's been like using it on my stomach, and like she does my feet with it. And yeah, so I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing, because we just recently got into this.
Nice. Yeah, when we talk about frequencies, like you said, everything has frequency or a wavelength, just like waves of an ocean. Those are a frequency. There's this invisible principles of frequency. We see it everywhere. You see it. You hear frequency in sound. It's in color. It's in smell. It's in taste. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Right.
So what I use frequency for is the body is kind of like a computer. If you need a computer to work, you need the hardware. So we get our hardware from the good foods we eat, good quality foods, right? And for a computer to work, you also need voltage or energy. And we get that in several ways. We get that when we go outside. We put our feet barefoot in the grass or the dirt.
Pull it up from the earth.
You got it. Yeah, life would not exist on this earth without lightning. When lightning strikes the ground, it deposits electrons in, and it bounces back and forth between the atmosphere.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it creates something called the Schumann resonance. So when we go barefoot, we get electrons that go into our body, and that's one of the ways we get voltage. We also get voltage when we work out. Our muscles are piezoelectric. So when we move them, we generate electrons, and the electrons go into this layer of tissue that surrounds your muscle called the fascia, and those are like power lines of our body. When you work out different muscle groups, they charge different organs.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways we get voltage. But for the body to work, again, it's like a computer. We need the voltage, we need the hardware. If you want a computer to work, you need software. And so when you use different frequencies at specific, whether it's a specific sound, a specific smell, you are able to harmonize different organs.
Okay.
So what I've done is, at the time I got sick, this was 2008. This was pretty hard times financially, kind of like what we see a lot today.
Yeah.
A lot of people are suffering a lot financially, but when I got sick and I had to apply these, I was so sick that I couldn't really work out. So I had to use frequencies on my body too. And so I had to buy a device, and it was about $2,000, and you had to learn how to use it. Luckily, my mind was well enough I could learn how to use it.
Yeah.
But as I've gone through this whole world of frequency, I've discovered, man, there's so many things that are hard to use for people. And once they break, it's like, oh, great. What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
So this all started for me during COVID. COVID was a real funny time.
We could go into time. That was like when I woke up to a lot of what was going on in the world. I think a lot of people did.
A lot of people did.
Yeah.
And so, which is good for me. But a lot of people had to learn the hard way, just like I did. It's not the fun way, but hey, you learn from it. So yeah, during COVID, I'd have patients come international, and all of a sudden they couldn't travel. So it's like, one of the specialties I have is toxins.
Yeah.
So when I got sick, my kidneys were healthy enough, I got tested and I had 13 C's of mercury poisoning.
Jeez.
So at the time, I had to use something called chelation therapy to help get it out of my body. But it's very time-consuming, costs a lot of money, and it wears you down because it's trying to use chemistry to eliminate toxicity.
Okay.
I find the better way to eliminate toxicity is through physics. So those waves I was talking to you about before, since everything has a frequency, things like heavy metals stay in our body because of their charge, because of their frequency. So certain metals like aluminum, they'll stick to your body like a magnet. And other frequencies like mercury, they'll get inside your cells and they actually repel in nature. And because they repel, they can't leave the body or the cells because of their charge.
They're just like hanging in suspension a little
Yep.
bit.
And so that's why the research, they found that mercury concentration is like 1,500 times the amount inside the mitochondria in the cell, which is where your energy source is, than in other parts of the body. It's all because of their charge. And that's why they can't leave the cells, and that's where they do the most damage. So if you can get toxins out of the cells, then that's where you have the most success. And so you use this principle called destructive interference. It's a physics principle. If I have a frequency of a toxin like mercury, what you do is you take that frequency and you flip its polarity. You take the reversal of it.
Yeah.
When you put the reverse frequency to the frequency of the toxin, because it's opposite, it cancels out the frequency of a toxin. It's called destructive interference. When you take the charge off, that's when it can actually leave the cell.
Interesting. Okay.
So I was able to use a certain technology treating patients and help people with toxicities such as heavy metals, chemicals, you name it. And I had a bunch of people come international. But when COVID hit, obviously they couldn't come. So I was like, okay, let's adapt. Let me see if I can figure out their toxins based on their history. And because I was able to figure out, okay, we usually see these toxins in this condition or from this profession. So I would try to send these reverse frequencies, and people could take orally to like Canada or Australia.
Yeah.
And because the government was so restrictive,
Right.
I wouldn't be able to get the bottles to them. It's like,
Interesting.
gosh,
Yeah.
Trudeau got another bottle of mine.
That bastard.
I know. So I was like, okay, how in the world am I going to get these bottles to patients? And I was like, maybe I could actually, why do I have to get the bottle to them? Why can't they just get the frequency themselves through their phone? So I had to figure out, okay, how can I get them the reverse frequency of these toxins without radiation or EMF? So I figured it out. So I created a membership where people could listen to these reverse frequencies of these toxins. Just by listening to it, it takes the charge off so it can leave the cell.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So that's what.
And it works through like a normal iPhone. The frequency doesn't get distorted or anything.
Well, what you have to do is I figured out a way. You just have to place these radiation and EMF blockers. So I found 2 different products that when we combine them, you're able to get the pure frequency without the radiation or EMF. So people can load the reverse frequency in liquid. They could take orally or drink, or they could also listen to it and get the benefit. And what's cool about this is I have when I'll start playing these reverse frequencies for these toxins. Like one patient, I started listening to their history. I was like, okay, this sounds just like mercury toxicity. So I started playing the reverse frequency for mercury. And I was like, I asked this patient, okay, where do you feel this as you listen to this? He's like, I feel this in my head. I said, there's a reason you feel it in your head. I was like, did you have previous metal fillings in your mouth? He's like, yes, I did. So when he had his previous metal fillings in his mouth, that mercury went inside of his brain.
Right.
Because when the dentist eliminated it, they didn't do it the right way.
So much of what dentists are doing is detrimental.
It's huge. And so
root canals,
Yep, you got it. We're on the same page. I love it. So, yes, it's cool is when people listen to these reverse frequencies, they'll be able to feel it where the toxin has an affinity. And once they stop feeling at that location, the frequency has been basically neutralized through destructive interference.
So the toxin has lost its charge, essentially?
It's lost its charge. So once it's lost its charge, the cell can actually kick it out. And then people usually need to take some sort of binder to help eliminate it. But what's cool about this is not only does this apply to toxins, I was able to figure out, okay, how can we have people have a treat for their pain? So I figured out frequencies where they could apply the phone to their body with the radiation EMF protectors, and they could help their pain out.
Interesting.
A TENS unit from your very own phone.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been using frequency with ever since, and I've seen great things from it. Amazing things.
I'm in, bro.
Yes.
I actually went to your Instagram page and I saw a membership, but I didn't really understand what it was. But now,
Yep.
yeah, that makes sense. So they just get access to your frequencies.
You get access to the frequencies, and I also teach people other biohacks. Because ultimately, what's been wrong with our healthcare system is
everything.
Yeah, yeah, seriously,
Like basically everything has been inverted, right?
100%. In fact, when you listen to some of the so-called experts, the things they recommend, you usually do the opposite. It's going to protect your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I've done in the membership is teach people biohacks and frequencies. And what's cool about it is for only $97 a month, I have over 60 frequencies, whereas the original device I paid for around $2,000, I only had 2 frequency sets. Obviously, I'm grateful for that. It helped save my life.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm like, this is 2024. This is years later, with inflation and other costs, rise of cost and living, you would think I would have to charge extra. Guess what? People can have reverse frequencies for healing and toxicity, you name it, from their very own phones without radiation or EMF.
And then they can kind of get access to you to help them listen to whatever they need to listen to based on how they're feeling and what they're battling.
Yeah, so I'll still see patients, obviously.
Yeah.
There's some things where things are so complicated you can't always self-teach yourself everything.
Right.
But I wanted a system where people could self-teach themselves and self-treat without them having
Which
to
is
depend
the way
on me or
healing
anyone
is
else.
meant to be.
Exactly.
There shouldn't be an intermediary between you and healing, right? Which is
100%.
how we've created almost everything in this world. There's always an intermediary,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. That is like really like life-changing what you're doing.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, at least from what I've seen is like, how long have you been doing this?
just came out with a membership in, was it March or April?
Okay, so
but I've been
just barely.
using frequency since 2008.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, medicine men always have to drop deep into their stuff before they get to heal other people with it.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing because I really, and you've seen this too, is like the Western medicine system is collapsing, right? And it's all going through this process of dying because it's a part of Earth that just needs to be shed, right? And I talk about this all the time, and like this may be like a little bit deeper than you're used to going, but
Okay.
when I talk about people like with Mother Earth, right? Like we see so much chaos and we see so much fear and we see so much destruction, but in my opinion, she knows exactly what she's doing, right? She is a conscious being that knows exactly what she's doing, right? And so she's kind of taking us through this process where we're seeing all of our darkness. And I believe that the human race is in just like this toddler stage, right? And we're just coming out of it, and we're just really starting to learn more about our darkness and like all the ways that we're poisoning ourselves, all the ways that we're killing the planet. But the reality is that she knows exactly what she's taking us through, and we're experiencing this whole death of parts of us that cannot exist anymore if we are going to live long term on this planet, right? So for a more sustainable species, planet, we have to move to systems like what you're talking about. So and what I see is we are right on the cusp of like this new medicine and I love that you're like you're doing it in a way that is like people can heal themselves. They don't need an intermediary. Like, yeah, you're there to help them and guide them, but they are their own medicine.
Yep.
Right?
100%. And I do think you're right. There's amazing how many answers there are in nature, and that's what I've noticed. Since I've known about frequency for this long, I've had this advantage of when I go outside, certain times of year, like certain animals will come out, or you'll see certain plants come out. And all of it's perfect timing for actually people's health. Back in Texas, we got these things called cicadas. Y'all don't have them here, but they're like really loud locust crickets things.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been.
I've heard of them.
You've heard of them, okay?
I've never been to Texas outside of just the airport, but
now you got to visit.
Okay.
Well, I'm just joking. I'm
coming down.
All right, sounds good. I got a place to visit if you come down.
Where are you at in Texas?
A place called Prosper.
Okay.
It's north of Dallas.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, we got these things called cicadas, and they're these loud. They make these loud frequency noises, but they only come out in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And when I studied their frequency, the noise they produce actually helps our livers. And on your liver, liver not only helps fire your liver, but your liver, you got a power line that goes to your brainstem. And the brainstem comes these cranial nerves, and some of these cranial nerves help you with body temperature regulation. So these cicadas are producing a sound that helps you get through the Texas heat.
Wow.
And I see this everywhere I go.
And they only come out in the summer.
Yeah, it's
all connected.
It's all connected. You see this pattern anywhere you go. And what's cool is this is not just like in Texas. I'll come here. And one example I found here is there's this plant called Russian sage. It's blooming right now, and it's blooming right now for a reason. Everything in nature uses frequency and physics, and it's for our good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what does Russian sage do for us?
Well, Russian sage, it's going to be hotter right now. And so the other part of the nerves that also gets help with body temperature regulation is your parasympathetic system. And Russian sage has a purple color to it, and this purple color will help you with body temperature regulation as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so
cool.
People will use
because every color has a frequency as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's why you break down frequency. There's sound, there's color, there's smell, there's taste.
I mean, everything that exists, right?
Yes.
Essentially is just one form of frequency further out on the periodic table or the what is it?
Yeah, the periodic table. Yeah, the periodic table is frequency as well.
Yeah.
But when we stay in harmony with some of these laws you see in nature, that's when we thrive the most. So an example that I see when we get out of harmony is Arizona. Arizona used to be the best place for people who had allergies. But people would come in and they would bring their non-native plants and plant them there. Now Arizona is one of the worst places for people with allergens.
Interesting.
Because we took things that was outside of the geography or frequency and they put it in. So anytime you're in a place, you stick to things that are more native to the environment, you're going to have a healthier body. And so that's what I do when I travel. When I came here, I was like, okay, what's everything local my body needs? When I raised my frequency to this area instead of Texas, I was better able to adapt to the heat and the altitude. Well, not heat. It's not as hot here, but the dryness, I should say, in that.
Right. Wow, man. Yeah, that's so cool. It's so cool what you're doing. So, yeah. And it's been about 13 years since we got home from our missions.
Yeah.
So where are you at with the church? Are you still in the church or?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Cool. And you married the girl that waited for you on the mission?
Yes,
Is that
I
right?
did. Yes. She was still happened to be there, so I'm so grateful. My wife, Ashley, she's amazing.
Yeah. And you got a beautiful little family. How many
Yep.
kids do you have?
4 kids.
4 kids.
Yeah. Where does life go? It's just a blink of an eye. And
Yeah, and now they get a benefit from all the stuff that you're learning and be raised in like a world that you guys get to control where it's not, they're not going to be poisoned by all the bullshit, all the negative frequencies that are hurting our bodies. And, because we have isolated ourselves so much from the healing frequencies of nature.
Yes.
And it's so interesting watching Earth go through this whole process of like healing herself.
Yeah.
And
that's what, when you talk about the conscious man, it kind of made me think of the pattern you see in nature. So in Texas, obviously, we got a bunch of bulls. You saw them in Spain, those bulls.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Just you look at nature, and nature tells you. And so if you're to go around a bunch of cows and calves, and there's bulls around, the bulls will all go around the cows and the calf, and they'll protect them.
Yeah.
So that's what I see for my family. And I'm not trying to be overly protective. My wife and I are a team in this, right?
Yeah.
But
it is still the role of a masculine man. It is his strength to be that fence, be that barrier around a peaceful and loving society. And within that peaceful, loving society, then women get to create beauty and dance and art and play. Right? Yep. It's just the roles that we're born with just the strengths that we play to if we want to thrive.
And we need them both. And I'll talk to you about in a second, too, what I see in society. But for a family perspective, I want to protect my family. This is obviously financially one of the reasons I go out and do my own business, but also we do homeschool. The stuff they're trying to teach kids nowadays.
Yeah.
Number one, I went through the system. I got a doctorate in chiropractic, so it was a long time of schooling. When I look back on all my schooling, how much time I wasted and money, I was like, man, this could have been done a lot more efficient.
Well, it's a system that's meant to create slaves for the system.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly what the school system, they're trying to crank out workers.
Yes.
They're not trying to crank out independent entrepreneurs, independent-minded thinkers.
Yes.
So I'm like, you know what? As the school systems where I live are still pretty amazing, heard great things, but I'm like, no, we can teach our kids better. Ultimately, kids just need to be able to read, write, think for themselves.
Yeah.
And so, we've done that, and that's what's the beautiful part. My wife and I, we call ourselves, we're frequency farmers.
I love that.
When you look at, I know. When you look at our
farmers.
ancestors, a lot of them worked on the farm. They worked together as a family. So, we work together as a family, and that's what's fun. Yeah,
it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It's cool. I talk to people a lot about the second coming of Christ because I'm not in the church anymore. I took a very different path than you. I actually had my girlfriend wait for me on my mission, came home, got married, we did the whole temple thing. So you and I were on a very similar path for a minute, and then, I just went completely off, got divorced, and just kind of left the church. But that whole process for me was kind of interesting, kind of redefining my relationship with Christ because he was such an important part of my life up until I decided that the church was no longer for me. And so there was a few years there because I was about 26 years old. So it was about, 8-9 years ago, 7 years ago, not the best in math, that I left the church. And, for a few years, I didn't really even almost kind of left God behind with the church in a sense. And a few years after that, I actually just kind of got a little bit more curious about, who is Christ to me? What does he mean? Because he was such an important figure in my life. And I felt like I had somewhat of a relationship with him, especially as a missionary, and I almost could feel his love. And so, the more I dove into it, essentially what I saw was Christ was a consciousness that came down here to teach us something and heal so many people. I believe his story got distorted in a lot of ways, in a way that disempowered humans, because I believe his message was that you are the medicine woman, you are the medicine man, right? You are your own healer, you are God. then there doesn't have to be anyone between you and God. And, he talks about coming back. And what I see in the world today is that Christ is back, in the form of us at least preparing the world for him to come again and reign, right? Because I really do believe that this world was created as essentially a celestial kingdom, right? And then it fell, the fall from the garden. Right. I think the Bible is a little bit off in some ways, but I don't really know, but it does make sense to me that Earth is taking herself kind of back to that state, which is a lot of what we're taught within the Mormon Church. And I feel like that Christ consciousness has kind of returned to the earth to prepare us to move in that direction. And you see it in the people that are here, right? You see it with doctors that are coming out with new stuff. You see it with just groups that are starting to come together to heal people that are coming together for meditation, whatever it is, right? You see Christ here. And it's so interesting to me.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's a returning to remembrance of him in many ways, and I got to give credit where credit's due. Obviously, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, what books do you read that helps you teach the most about frequency?" And honestly, most books I read, the most time I spend is in the scriptures.
Yeah,
I see the Lord. Every healing modality I see will always point back to the Savior Jesus Christ. It's very interesting. I'm working on my third book about that right now, but an example is one of the things I use to help people is vinegar. We're like, what? Vinegar? There's this nerve called your cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve. It's a parasympathetic nerve, so it helps your body rest and digest and relax, and it's one of the most important nerves in the body. If you get this nerve firing right, it helps unlock voltage of your entire body system so that you can receive more electrons.
Sure.
But what helps this nerve is bitter taste. And sure enough, when Christ was on the cross, he was given vinegar, bitter. And so every healing modality I've seen somehow, some way points back to the Savior.
And it's almost like hidden, right? And so that's why you have to really dive deep into what it was, because it's given to us in symbols. And I think that's all very purposeful, because it wants us to have some sort of a relationship there, have a relationship with Christ.
Yes.
And he will show you how you are your own Christ in a way. Right, and you can heal yourself because he was the ultimate healer.
Yep.
Right, and I really
100%.
do believe that he's back, or at least he's. I don't believe that he's necessarily going to be coming back in the sense that the church talks about it anymore. I believe that he's here. He's in us. We are his consciousness, and we are the same consciousness that existed there then. 888.
There you go.
So yeah, it's interesting, man. My relationship with Christ has completely changed, but I see him everywhere. I see him everywhere, and I see him healing the earth, and I hold that belief that we are going to a better place, that we are taking this earth back to a more celestial state where, we will live with nature. We will live with the earth, not on the earth. We will have a better relationship with her, and we'll have more of a connection with our people, and not such a consumer mindset, right? Because we've found that consuming doesn't make us happy. Not only is it not sustainable, but it doesn't make people happy.
Yep.
What makes people happy is being connected, right? Relationships. And so I see us moving back to a place where we're more tribal and we're living on the earth. We're living with the earth instead of on the earth, right?
Yeah.
Much more connected.
Yeah, it's
And fulfilled,
yes,
ultimately.
Absolutely. We're living in very exciting times, and definitely there's a focus on the Savior in every aspect. It's all coming together, whether it's in health and finance, you name it.
Sure.
Yes, it's a very exciting times we're in. It's just going to get better.
I hope so.
It will.
I choose to hold on to that belief that we are moving to, I feel like we're moving through sort of an awakening of Earth where she is taking us to somewhere much, much more beautiful and more fulfilling and more connected.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you? People that want to get access to your membership, which sounds super cool. Instagram is probably the best place.
Yeah. You can go to Instagram. Follow us on Healing Playbook.
Okay.
And we also have a website, healingplaybook.com. And we're going to be adding a page. We haven't added the page yet. We will be adding it shortly. We'll try to get it to it tonight. Healing Playbook. Look for the membership, and you'll be
Cool. Yeah, it'll be a couple weeks before this comes out anyway, so you
Okay,
have a little
cool.
bit of time to prepare.
I'll be ready.
Yeah. And where is your practice at? Is it in Prosper?
So what's interesting is I will see people online.
Okay,
What's cool
cool.
is you can figure out people's health challenges even online just by
Cool.
talking to them.
Okay.
And again, I want to give people solutions.
Yeah.
But I've had people where they pay me to be able to visit them, their home,
Sure.
or they'll come to my house. But yeah,
But people in Utah can contact you and you can help them out.
yes, absolutely.
Cool.
So there's hope. There's hope for anything.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Chase, it's good to see you again, bro.
Good to see you again too.
Yeah, we had a good time there a couple weeks in the
Oh,
MTC,
yeah.
and we connected. I still think about you all the time because I think
Oh, yeah.
about that thing that you told me. I'm like, I should have fucking listened to him. But yeah, it's great
It's
to have you
okay.
on.
I'm glad your health's doing better. So
Yeah.
hopefully I was a piece of that journey, but no credit to me. Credit above.
Right, exactly. So yeah, appreciate you having you on, and yeah, man,
Cool.
much love.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.